Good morning. Good morning, good morning. This morning, we're going to look at Acts chapter 22. And I apologize, it looks like looks like this thing's on its way out. The bulb, anyway, is not super bright in the machine anymore. I'll see if I can get one ordered up. It is rather ancient. I'm pretty sure it's older than all of our children, this projector. So, we have one that's 14, so I'm pretty sure it's getting pretty old here. All right, Acts chapter 22 is where we're going to be this morning. We saw in chapter 21 this dramatic shift that happens in the storyline that Luke is telling us here. So Paul is headed back to Jerusalem. He's told what's going to happen to him there. He's told him that it's going to essentially be the end of him going back to Jerusalem. And some people warn him not to go, but other people, they don't tell him not to go. They just encourage him to do whatever the Lord wants him to do there. And when he gets into town, the church there, and especially the elders in the church, James, most notably, the brother of Jesus, James tries to head off the conflict that he knows is going to happen, right? Paul has been in conflict with at least 6 other groups of Jews along his journeys throughout Asia Minor and into Greece, modern-day Greece and Macedonia. He's gotten kicked out. He's been beaten. He's been imprisoned. And so his reputation, even from 1,000 miles away, precedes him. And so the church there tries to head off this conflict by saying, Paul, why don't you go pay for these 4 people's purification and yourself while you're at it? And that will sort of show everyone that you're a loyal Jew and that you really don't have any problems with the Jewish part. And Paul doesn't have a problem with that. He doesn't have a problem paying for their purification. The plan, though, backfires, and Paul is recognized, and this riot sort of ensues. And funny, it's maybe not so funny for Paul, but his only hope in the situation comes in the form of everyone's hated ally, the Romans, right? Because the Romans save him from this Jewish riot that they're getting ready. They've already thrown him out of the temple, and the reason for that was you couldn't actually beat anybody up or kill them inside the temple. So we got to kick them outside the doors of the temple to do that. And so in today's lesson in chapter 22, we're going to see Paul attempting to address the crowd, but you'll notice here at the end of what Jessel read, at the mention of being sent by God to the Gentiles, the Jews riot again. And I know you can't see the picture behind me, but it's an actual mock-up of the Second Temple from the time of Jesus. And in the center, you can see the courtyard of the Gentiles, and then you can see the holy place, which is the first big open courtyard, and then you see the most holy place, which is the little 10-foot by 10-foot square building in the center there, or at least the interior dimensions are 10 by 10. It's not a very big place. But attached to the courtyard there, you can see the fortress Antonia. I mentioned this last time. And that fortress was built by Herod because the Jews were so rebellious that we had to have a Roman garrison, 500 or more people stationed right there next to the temple to stop this rioting because they rioted so much. Now, a lot of that was in reference to the Romans themselves, so they were rebelling against the Roman rule. But in today's lesson, we're just going to focus on Paul and the riot that happens. And he's saved again by these Roman guards, only to face the standard Roman, what was called examination. And that examination meant torture, right? But there's an interesting plot twist, and I'm going to give away, spoiler alert, the end of the chapter. And it's going to form the rest of the course of this book, this plot twist. Paul reveals his Roman citizenship, and he didn't buy it. He was born into it. And so, since the Jews were quasi-self-governing, just to be sure of what Paul was claiming, the Roman captain decides that Paul should appear before the Jewish council of the Sanhedrin. And as we're going to find out next week, that really doesn't get Paul any closer to being a free man. But it does take the opportunity to point out, he does take that opportunity to point out several times where justice was miscarried, or the miscarriage of justice happens. So, let's look at Acts chapter 21, the end of 21. Paul says that he's not this Egyptian rebel that they thought he was, maybe. The Romans thought he was. And he starts to give his first defense speech here in Acts. There are at least 6 of these speeches. Sometimes I count 5, sometimes 6, depends on how you count them. At the end of every speech, they don't find any reason to keep him. But they can't let him go, right? Why? We decided last week. You remember why? Because he's dangerous. Is he going around killing people, though? No. He's dangerous in the sense that he is a revolutionary. What he's teaching is revolutionary. What he's telling them is the gospel, the good news about Jesus, about how he met Jesus. He's telling his own gospel story about how he met Jesus on the road there to Damascus and what Jesus told him to do. And the scene now, as Paul goes to address the crowd, he asks his Roman captor, hey, would you mind, before we take off here and I get, beaten and whipped, do you mind if I address the crowd? Because maybe we can solve this right now, right? And this sort of unfolds in 3 parts here. The first one is a short exchange that I just mentioned between Paul and the person called the tribune. He's the one in charge, right? And Paul is able to identify himself, and he's able to explain that he's not this Egyptian rebel. And then there is Paul's first speech in Acts. This is going to be through verse 21 that Jessel read for us. It's important to know that all of Paul's speeches from this point on are talking about his defense, are in his defense. There's several themes that he goes over because he's going to tell the story of his conversion again later. And the themes are that he is a faithful Jew. He is a faithful Jew that is responding to the promise of God at God's own direct calling, his own direct leading. God has brought him from persecutor to believer. Now, there is not a direct message for us, necessarily, command in this story for us. But if there was a message that we can take out of this story, it is that we can be like Paul. We can change, we can have a radical transformation in our life if we allow the gospel, the good news of Jesus, to come and shine a light into our life and to change everything that we believe in our life and wholly put our trust into Jesus and to his words. And so in this first speech, Paul is going to talk about his conversion at Damascus. That's verses 6 through 11. I'm not going to read it again because we just read it. And after he sort of reviews his past, he was a Jewish persecutor, right? And now he's going to talk about his calling in verses 12 through 16. He's going to tell of the Lord and how he led him to leave Jerusalem after his conversion because of the danger that was facing him there. That's the second half of what we read through verse 21. The problem is that the mention of being sent to the Gentiles brings everything to this screeching halt. And Paul's speech and their reactions, they parallel something that happened earlier in Luke. Let's turn to Luke chapter 4 real quick. We won't read the whole account. Did I say Luke?
You did.
I did. Did I mean Acts? I'm pretty sure. I don't know. My notes say Luke, so I'll go with my notes, and let's just see if it's correct or not. I was thinking of a different one, but we can do Luke chapter 4. Oh, yes. Yeah. So, Luke chapter 4, we won't read the whole thing, because 16 through 30 talks about when we skip ahead to the tradition part, we say, oh, come sing songs with us. Come hear a message. We have made the same mistake that the Jews were making. We've gone into traditionalism. We say, oh, come get in this tradition here with us, and it'll all be good. It creates blindness. It can even create stubbornness, which is a very deadly combination when you're blind and stubborn, right? You need to make sure the focus of when we talk and tell people about God is that we are talking about the good news. And if you need help doing that, I'm not saying that everybody has to be the most eloquent speaker of the gospel. If you need help with that, give me a call. We'll go have coffee with this person, whoever it is, if you want to talk to them about the gospel. But we need to make sure that our actions are not based in traditionalism. We're not just showing up because we like singing. We're showing up because our hearts want to praise God and give back to Him. That's the lesson from Acts chapter 22. Next week, we'll look at Acts chapter 23. It's good to see everybody here this morning. Go ahead and grab your song books, and we'll sing the song that's been selected there. Number 581. 581.